On February 7th, 2025, President Trump signed his first executive order dealing with firearms. It was titled Protecting Second Amendment Rights. The executive order is exactly what GOA hoped it would be and gives us and our members a chance to weigh in and help construct what gun policy from the Trump administration will look like going forward. Today, we're going to talk about what exactly the executive order does and our suggestions for the administration on the next steps. Hey guys, I'm Tiffany and you're watching One in the Chamber, the show that helps you become a better gun rights activist. And before we get into this video, I just want to take a second to let you know about GOA's annual convention, Goals. The Gun Owners Advocacy and Leadership Summit is set to be held August 9th through 10th of this year in Knoxville, Tennessee. Come out and visit with some of our favorite manufacturers, participate in activism training, and hear from the top voices in the Second Amendment community. And the best part, it is free for GOA members. So sign up today using the link in the description. So now back to the video. So what did President Trump's executive order actually do? Well, the order itself directs the Attorney General Pam Bondi to examine all orders, regulations, guidance, plans, international agreements, and other actions of executive departments and agencies to assess any ongoing infringements of the Second Amendment rights of the citizens. The AG will then present a proposed plan of action to protect the Second Amendment to the President. The order also directs AG Bondi to review all presidential and agencies' actions from January 2021 to January 2025 that purport to promote safety but may have infringed on the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding citizens. Review all rules promulgated by the Department of Justice, including by the ATF from January 2021 to January 2025, pertaining to firearms and/or federal firearms licensees. Review all agencies' plans, orders, and actions regarding ATF's illegal zero-tolerance policy pertaining to firearms and/or federal firearms licensees. Review all reports and related documents issued by the White House of gun violence prevention. Review all positions taken by the United States in any and all ongoing potential litigation that affects or could affect the ability of Americans to exercise their Second Amendment rights. That's pretty huge. There has been so much happening in the legal space with Second Amendment rights, a lot of victories and a lot of unconstitutional rulings. During President Trump's last admin, anti-gunners were dodging SCOTUS by mooting cases, but the Bruen decision opened the watershed for gun rights. Imagine what it would be like with the Department of Justice taking the side of the Second Amendment in court. Continuing with this list, Trump's executive order also orders a review of agencies' classifications of firearms and ammunition, and finally, a review of the processing of applications to make, manufacture, transfer, or export firearms. This, of course, is referring to ATF's egregious NFA wait times. It sure sounds like AG Bondi will have a lot of reviewing to do, and this executive order is a great chance for her to prove to gun owners that she supports the Second Amendment and her previous gun control stances are a thing of the past. But we actually have a tight timeline here. The executive order sets a 30-day deadline for Pam Bondi to submit her report to the White House Domestic Policy Advisor, Vince Haley, a powerful person at the White House. Then, President Trump will issue his final action. That clock started ticking on Friday, February 7th. That means we have until March 9th to help AG Pam Bondi and President Trump get this right. Now, at this point, you might be asking, what about actually overturning the terrible gun control put in place by the Biden admin and more? And don't worry, that's the goal. But a hastily written executive order blanketly overturning Biden's orders could result in court cases being mooted. Considering that the Supreme Court will rule on the frame-of-receiver rule here shortly, in the case Garland v. Vanderstock, which ironically now is called Bondi v. Vanderstock, this process allows the AG and the Department of Justice to figure out how to overturn these gun control orders and have the longest lasting effect on the protection of the Second Amendment. And don't forget, President Trump's executive order stated that, at a minimum, Biden's gun control will be overturned. And there's a possibility for even more gun control to be overturned as well. And that's why we put together our list of gun control that needs to be overturned by Pam Bondi's Department of Justice. Now, this obviously is not a conclusive list. We want to see all gun control get overturned, of course, no compromise, but some laws cannot be overturned by the executive branch. For our big objectives like abolishing the NFA overturning the Gun Control Act and the Hughes Amendment will need more than action from the executive branch. First off, we suggest that the Trump administration set an Office of Gun Rights Restoration to oversee executive order implementation and advise the president on anything Second Amendment related that comes up during his term. This would be helpful in making sure that the Second Amendment has a voice in the White House, especially when tragedy strikes. We can avoid jumping to gun control and focus on real solutions. This would also be a good way to continue the White House's focus on gun rights for the next 4 years, far past this 30-day report by the Attorney General. Second, we strongly advise President Trump to revoke Biden's Executive Order 14092 from March 14, 2023 on gun control. Biden's executive order from 2023 set into motion a few different gun control regulations. The largest and most significant was his direction of the Department of Justice to implement universal background checks by requiring private sellers of firearms to register with the ATF. This became known as the Engage in the Business rule, which we currently have enjoined in court. Third, we're asking AG Bondi to reverse all of the ATF's unconstitutional rules, and those being definition of framer receiver and identification of firearms, factoring criteria for firearms with attached stabilizing braces, definition of engaged in the business as a dealer in firearms. ATF's illegal rulemaking serves one purpose and one purpose only: to harass and antagonize law-abiding gun owners. These tyrannical rules should immediately be reversed. In addition, ATF bureaucrats and agents who enforce them, ignoring court precedent, should be fired. And fourth, we're asking AG Bondi to reverse ATF's illegal zero-tolerance policy. ATF's zero-tolerance policy has cost many FFL holders their livelihoods. We're also asking that in addition to the reversal of the policy, we're asking for the restoration of every unlawfully revoked FFL. And if AG Bondi wants another reason to clean house at ATF, these IOIs and agents who participated in zero-tolerance revocations likely could be fired as well. And this seems especially likely given that the executive order already explicitly referenced the zero-tolerance policy. Number 5. We're also asking the Trump administration to exempt all concealed carry permit holders from NICS checks. This is actually common practice in a few different states, but it just makes sense. If you've submitted yourself to a background check once for a concealed carry permit, why should you have to go through that process every single time when you go buy a firearm? Skipping the NICS check makes sense, and this system works really well in the states where it is already implemented. Number 5. We are asking the administration to eliminate sporting purposes tests on the importation of firearms. The current sporting purpose test for importing firearms is a massive burden on manufacturers and prevents gun owners from buying some of the coolest firearms that are produced all over the world. It also leads to the ATF into making really stupid choices. Most recently, Beretta has had to stop sales of its 1301 shotguns that were imported with a 7-round tube. Instead, Beretta had to debut a new version with a 5-round tube instead. Why? Nobody knows. And ATF is constantly changing their statute that their import classification is based on. In 2020, they changed the rules, banning any handgun that shot rifle ammunition, claiming that those now required NFA registration. That's why this muddy regulatory garbage needs to be eliminated entirely. Number 6, we're asking the Trump admin to modernize and streamline the National Firearms Act by making it as close to an instant background check as possible, by issuing tax stamps at the point of sale. If we can't overturn the NFA without an act of Congress, we can certainly make it easier to live with. And there's no reason that buying a suppressor, SBR, or a machine gun should take more than a few minutes to clear a background check. Imagine if you could walk into a gun store to buy a suppressor and walk out with a freshly printed tax stamp. So much is really possible here. Number 7, we're asking the Trump administration to halt all funding for state-level red flag gun confiscation laws and investigate states that have those laws for due process violations. The Biden administration knew that they couldn't issue an executive order or regulation to make federal red flag laws. And they also knew that if anti-gunners somehow passed red flag laws through Congress, the due process violation would never pass a check from the judicial branch. Instead, they bribed states into passing state-level red flag gun confiscation laws where the laws might just survive a lawsuit. We're asking Pam Bondi in particular to prove her dedication to protecting the Second Amendment and work to overturn these insane due process violations nationwide. Number 8. We're asking the Trump administration to reverse the Biden-era guidance targeting patriotic, Second Amendment supporting Americans as MVEs or militia violent extremists. During Biden's term in office, federal agencies like FBI circulated a symbols guide that designated Second Amendment support as indicative of domestic terrorism. We're asking the Trump admin to stop this targeting of Americans immediately. Number 9. We're asking the Trump admin to restore the gun rights of over 250,000 veterans that have been disarmed illegally by the VA. If you haven't been watching our video series on the VA's illegal gun control scheme, since the Clinton administration, over 250,000 veterans have been disarmed simply for having someone who helps to manage their finances. Number 10. We're asking the Trump admin to delete ATF's illegal, searchable registry of gun owners. If you aren't up to date, ATF maintains a registry of gun owners through their out-of-business records collection center in Martinsburg, West Virginia. This registry is maintained in violation of federal law. We're asking the Trump admin to enforce the law and delete this illegal registry once and for all. There's no reason ATF needs 920 million records in a digital searchable database. Number 11. We're asking the Trump admin to halt financial attacks and debanking on gun owners by the federal government through policies like reputational risk. We're also asking for an end to the spying on purchases made by gun owners through the IRS and the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. Number 12. We're asking President Trump to nominate a pro-gun ATF director who is a strong gun rights activist and knowledgeable about firearms. According to leaked information, Bondi is considering appointing a non-ideological person to be the new head of the ATF. Pam Bondi must understand that truly restoring law and order in the eyes of gun owners means fundamentally transforming the rogue ATF. That means appointing an ATF director who will do all of the following: stand up to ATF's rogue officials, help President Trump downsize the federal government, including ATF, unravel Biden's weaponization of law enforcement, especially ATF, scale back the ATF's infringements of constitutional rights, and return freedom to the hands of the people to whom it belongs. Maintaining the corrupt, tyrannical status quo by appointing current or former top ATF officials is not the kind of law and order that the American people want or expect. Quite frankly, it would be nice to have a nominee who is able to field strip a Glock in less than 10 seconds and can articulate the difference between a bump stock and an M16. With a strong pro-gun director in charge of ATF, the Bureau's purpose could be focused on stopping cartel trafficking at the southern border or going after real criminals instead of law-abiding citizens. If we can't abolish the agency entirely, we might as well make it work for us and for the good of the country. Of course, there are more suggestions we'll be making to the White House, but these are our favorites. What gun control do you want the Trump admin to roll back? Leave a comment and let me know. Anyways, that's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to share this with your friends and family, and I'll see you guys next time.